In the 1960s, Bob Crane had it all that an actor could ever dream of. With his flawless smile and quick wit, he captured hearts playing Colonel Robert Hogan, the smart commander of the popular sitcom Hogan's Heroes. Behind the cameras, he was no less charming, with his quick humor and friendly demeanor. Yet, while the world perceived him as the friendly TV star, unbeknownst to all, his life was disintegrating in ways that few could have ever thought possible. What started as a career in comedy would culminate in betrayal, scandal, and a violent death that raised more questions than answers. Prior to his TV fame, Bob Crane was already well known in Los Angeles via the radio. He was the man of 1,000 voices and had a morning show on KNX, which featured celebrity interviews with the likes of Marilyn Monroe, Bob Hope, and Charlton Heston. His natural quick wit and confidence endeared him to the stars of Hollywood. Walt Disney himself referred to him as the fastest wit in the West at one point. His radio success soon landed him on the stage of acting. In 1961, TV legend Carl Reiner showed up on Crane's radio show and subsequently invited him onto the Dick Van Dyke Show as a philandering husband. That single role led to further opportunities, including a recurring role as a cheerful-go-lucky dentist on the Donna Reed Show. In 1965, Crane's agent presented him with a script for a new TV series titled Hogan's Heroes. Initially, Crane thought it was a war drama, unaware it was in fact a comedy featuring Allied prisoners of war outwitting their hapless German captors at every turn. In spite of its odd premise, Hogan's Heroes was a huge success. Crane's performance as Colonel Hogan made him a household name. The series lasted for 6 years, 1965 to 1971, and earned him 2 Emmy nominations and made him one of television's most familiar stars. His face was plastered on billboards, lunchboxes, and magazines all over the nation. To an audience of millions, he was the grinning, quick-witted leader who always had a solution. On television, Crane was living a dream. But even in the height of his popularity, friends saw disturbing changes. His home life was strained, his hunger for adventure intensified, and his behind-the-scenes conduct started to show an all-consuming obsession that would one day destroy him. Nevertheless, for the public, all that was apparent was the laughter, behind the charisma and charm. Nevertheless, a hidden double existence was taking shape. During the mid-1960s, Crane's interest in photography progressed toward becoming more clandestine. Initially, he merely experimented with cameras, posing models, and trying out new video gear. But eventually, the camera became the focal point of his private life. The break came when his Hogan's Heroes co-star, Richard Dawson, befriended him and took him to meet John Henry Carpenter, a salesman of video equipment for Sony Electronics. Carpenter had strong connections in Hollywood and provided Crane with cutting-edge technology. The two developed an instant rapport over their obsession with recording devices. Carpenter even assisted him in installing equipment in hotels during travel. What started as curiosity-based friendship escalated into behavior that alarmed those who knew Crane most closely. With Carpenter, Crane spent much of their free time at nightclubs and bars, where Crane's fame attracted a lot of attention. He tended to introduce Carpenter as his manager, and the pair became inseparable, going everywhere together and testing gadgets continuously. Some of this was written off as innocent fun, but others began to feel uncomfortable about Crane's increasing reliance on filming all the time. Coworkers saw that he seemed preoccupied, more interested in his side passion than the career upon which he had originally focused. The strain soon reached his personal life. His marriage to and Tertzian, his high school sweetheart and mother of his 3 children, ended in divorce after more than 2 decades. He later married Patricia Olson, who had appeared on Hogan's Heroes as Sigrid Valdis, but the same problems followed him. Even when filming Disney's 1973 family film Superdad, Crane's behavior off-screen was said to have upset executives, tarnishing his image within the industry. By the late 1970s, Crane was no longer the television star he once had been. Though he kept working solidly on stage productions and seemed set on rebuilding his career, his relationship with Carpenter was growing more tense. Crane told friends that he wanted to escape, shake off old habits, and begin anew. But by the summer of 1978, it was too late. By June 1978, Crane was living in Scottsdale, Arizona, performing in a stage comedy called Beginner's Luck at the Windmill Dinner Theater. At 49 years old, just 2 weeks shy of his 50th birthday, he seemed ready for change. Friends recalled that he had spoken about divorcing Patricia Olson and cutting ties with John Carpenter. He wanted to start anew. But before he could take that step, his life came to a sudden, violent end. On June 29, 1978, Victoria and Barry, who was a co-star of Crane's, visited him after he failed to turn up for lunch. In his apartment at Winfield Place, she found a gruesome scene. Crane was found lying dead in bed, his head brutally battered, and the police suspected that the killer might have used a camera tripod. An electrical cord was also discovered near his body, although this was not the killer. What most upset detectives was how little evidence of a struggle there was. Nothing had been taken, and there was no sign of a forced entry. The murderer was obviously somebody Crane felt comfortable with or somebody who came in while he was sleeping. John Carpenter was the first to become the focus of suspicion, having arrived in Phoenix only days before to visit Crane. The two had dined together the previous evening and had even shared some of their private tapes with each other, reports stated. Carpenter had described that he returned to his motel afterwards, but later witnesses refuted portions of his account. Police who raided Crane's apartment discovered cameras, tripods, tapes, and cables laid out everywhere. Proof of his secret double life. The stark revelation stunned the public. The popular television actor suddenly found himself recast in tabloid headlines as a scandal-scarred man. For his loved ones, it was heartbreaking. For detectives, it was both a lead and a distraction. The evidence linked Carpenter to Crane's personal life, but the salacious content of the information made it difficult to discern reality. It was immediately apparent this was no crime of opportunity, it was one of personal vendetta. Scottsdale police in 1978 were not ready for a case like this. They had no homicide division, and errors at the crime scene followed the investigation for decades. Tapes, photographs, and recorders were gathered, but improperly handled. Friends and relatives, even Crane's eldest son, Robert, were permitted into the apartment before it was secured, tampering with the scene through fingerprints, footprints, and hair. In spite of these mistakes, suspicion was centered firmly on Carpenter. His rental car had smears of blood of the same type as Crane's, but blood typing left the district attorney without cause to press charges since DNA testing wasn't available. Without weapon or clear fingerprints, the district attorney refused to indict Carpenter. Carpenter went back to Los Angeles, but his reputation was ruined. The case went cold for over a decade. In 1990, it was reopened by investigators, spurred on by developments in DNA technology. They discovered an old photo of the interior of Carpenter's car with what seemed to be a biological residue. The initial samples had been misplaced, but the photo provided prosecutors with enough to act on. In 1992, John Carpenter was arrested and charged with Crane's murder. The trial started in 1994 and played out as a Hollywood courtroom drama. Prosecutors accused Carpenter, outraged by Crane's decision to end their friendship, of killing him. Prosecutors used blood evidence, the two men's past, and testimony from Crane's son Scotty, who reported that his father had discussed cutting Carpenter out of his life. The defense countered that the evidence was circumstantial, citing that the biological sample was absent, the crime scene was botched, and the tripod theory was conjecture. They also raised alternative suspects. After weeks of testimony, the jury acquitted Carpenter. He had continued to claim innocence until his 1998 death. Officially, the case went back into cold files, unsolved. For Bob Crane's kids, the trial brought nothing but pain. His oldest son, Robert, recounted the agony of seeing his father's private life turned into public spectacle, trumping his career in television and radio. Another son, Robert David Crane, expressed doubt that Patricia Olson might have been more involved, pointing out that Crane's will left all to her, omitting his first wife and kids. Although the prosecutors never once thought of Olson as a suspect, the speculation added to the family's sorrow. Scotty Crane, on the other hand, stood up for his father's honor, maintaining that the women on the recordings were willing parties. The media, however, characterized his father as a scandal-plagued fallen star, suppressing acknowledgement of his gift as a trailblazing radio personality and Emmy-nominated actor. His 1978 funeral demonstrated just how much he was still loved, attracting 200 mourners, including Patty Duke, Carol O'Connor, and John Astin. His pallbearers included his Hogan's Heroes co-stars. However, with the passage of time, Hollywood moved away. Reruns of Hogan's Heroes disappeared, and Crane's name became more closely associated with controversy than comedy. Even years later, attempts at cracking the case broke down. In 2016, fresh DNA analysis was conducted on Carpenter's rental car blood. 2 male DNA profiles were revealed, unidentified and one too deteriorated for conclusions. Everything else was used in the process and destroyed, with no hope for retesting. The case stalled in limbo once more. The surviving family of Crane were frustrated. Robert authored a memoir in 2015, portraying his father's assassination as an ever-present haze over his existence. Scotty faulted the 2002 movie Autofocus, which sensationalized Crane's personal life, as warping reality. He even created a website to offer up documents and material that he felt provided a more complete portrait of his father's existence. Crane's image continued to be clouded, though. Hollywood never speaks his name without scandal. Hogan's Heroes, one of the pioneering sitcoms of its day, is more recalled now for its star's scandal than for its humor. Bob Crane, who was so beloved for his charm and ability, became better known as the victim of a murder that would remain unsolved. The actual tragedy isn't even that he died, but that he's remembered. Bob Crane spent his life making people laugh, entertaining millions with his wit and charm. But for one night in Scottsdale and the dark secrets that followed, his legacy was rewritten, defined by betrayal, not triumph, but by scandal and sorrow. His tale is one of Hollywood's greatest tragedies. A man who had brought happiness to millions, brought low by secrets and an unsolved crime. Years later, his family still seeks answers, but perhaps the truth was lost for good. What actually went down in Scottsdale back in 1978? Let us know your theories in the comments below, and remember to like and subscribe for more hidden Hollywood history.